Hello and welcome to this episode of Communion K Mini. This episode, like many of the other mini episodes, is going to be focused on the Smash Bros. Post of the Day by Masahiro Sakurai to Miiverse. And so, it's actually quite unfulfilling in a sense. There's not really much new information, so I'm probably going to be covering some additional information from the Nintendo Direct earlier today. And so, I'll just go right into what the Post of the Day was. And so, it's really quite simple, and here's what he says, quote, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, 50 Facts Extravaganza, or the Super Smash Bros. For Wii U 50 Must-See Things is out now. If you missed it, watch it from the links below, close quote. So, yes, quite boring, just a reminder that the Nintendo Direct occurred today, and I guess he kind of deserves it. I mean, considering all of the information he gave us earlier today, there's not really too much of a point to add anything more in the Post of the Day other than referring to the Direct itself. And so the thing I'm going to be covering in this Communion K Mini episode is the stages that were showcased in the Direct. And so I've got a list of them. Obviously there's going to be a lot of older ones, and there are actually some stages that were not showcased in the Direct, meaning there's still unlockable stages and still the potential for different stages to come into play. And so this isn't a complete list of the stages for Smash Bros. Wii U, but it is a substantial amount of those stages. And so, going right in, let's start with stages that we've either seen before previously or are from previous games such as Nintendo 64, Melee, and Brawl. And so, first one, obviously, is Battlefield. And then Mario Galaxy, which is a new stage, but we've seen it before. Castle Siege from Brawl was showcased in the Post of the Day. Orbital Gate Assault, which is the new Star Fox stage, which was also showcased in an earlier Post of the Day. Gower Plain, which is a stage from the 3DS version, the only change to the Wii U version being the metal face element, which I talked about in the previous episode. Yoshi's Island from Melee and Brawl. Wily Castle, which is also in the 3DS version. Lilac Cruise from Brawl. Town and City from Animal Crossing, which is similar to the Animal Crossing stage from Brawl. Mario Circuit from Brawl, 75M from Brawl, Skyworld from Brawl, which was, funnily enough, accidentally labeled as a Legend of Zelda stage as opposed to a Kid Icarus stage. The Wii Fit Studio, which is a new stage but was showcased in the Wii Fit Trainer's reveal video. Norfair from Brawl, the Boxing Ring, which is also in the 3DS version. Port Town Aero Dive, which is in Brawl. Skyloft, which is already showcased. Luigi's Mansion from Brawl. Onett from Melee and subsequently Brawl. Halberd from Brawl. Delfino Plaza from Brawl. Gamer, which is the WarioWare stage, which was showcased in the Post of the Day about a month ago. Pilot Wings, which has been showcased already. Bridge of Eldin from Brawl. Final Destination. And I believe that might be it. Oh, Mushroom Kingdom U, which has been showcased. Garden of Hope, which has been showcased. Colosseum, which has been showcased. And Kalos Pokemon League, which has also been showcased. And so here are the ones that I'm not sure have been showcased. I may have just missed them, or that are obviously completely new. And so, first one I'd like to talk about, I'm going to start off with what are called the large stages, or the big stages. And these are the ones that are designed for the 8-player Smash battles. So the first one I'd like to talk about is Palutena's Temple. Now, this is kind of on a very big scale, as expected for this sort of stage. There, as you can see in this screenshot, you can see Bowser right about there, and it's like, he's so small in comparison to the size of the stage. This is enormous, and it's just got a bunch of platforms, a lot of room to move around, a lot of room to run around, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how this works. And then the next one is Temple from Melee and Brawl, which appears to have maybe gotten a little bit of a scale increase. Just not any of the parts of it have changed, but it's just kind of been upped in scale so that the fighters are smaller compared to the stage than they used to be, I believe. And so this actually works really well for an 8-player Smash, as it's always been a pretty large stage, and if it has been scaled up, it's definitely going to be sufficient for the needs of an 8-player Smash. And then the next is Big Battlefield, and this is basically Battlefield with a few extra platforms as well as being bigger. I mean, it's called Big Battlefield, for goodness sake. And so yeah, this will be interesting to see whether this is going to be used in smaller matches even, because this is a very, I guess, competitively viable stage, if you'd call it that. And so really I'm interested to see how this affects just tourney play and such. And then the next one's the Great Cave Offensive, which I actually speculated about in the Communique mini episode that I put up earlier today, when they kind of showed it in the SD penalty, the self-destruct penalty photo, and myself as well as a few others, including GameXplain and many, had guessed that this was the Great Cave Offensive because of the patterns, the kind of introduction to it. And so turns out we were right, and the Great Cave Offensive is actually quite extensive. As mentioned in the Direct, it's got the danger zones, which are basically lava, or whatever you want to call them, that just damage you if you hit them, unless you're over 100%, at which point they just instantly kill you, instantly KO. And so that'll be really interesting to see. I mean, it's just going to be a fun kind of quirky stage. It's got minecarts zipping all around, it's got spikes in some places, it's got treasure chests apparently, so we'll see what happens. And then the next one is Jungle Hijinks. Now this is the stage that I mentioned also in my previous video from the Direct, where it's a brand new sort of concept for a stage. It's a 2-plane stage. You can play on 2 planes, either in the foreground or the background, and you use the cannons to travel back and forth. I was incorrect in my earlier video in saying that after you use a cannon, the next time you use that cannon it will blow up. That was incorrect. Actually, after you use a cannon, there's a time where your character is quote-unquote on fire. And so as long as you are on fire from that cannon blast, if you enter a cannon, it will explode. So you can't just be rapidly switching back and forth between the foreground and the background. But it's still a very, very interesting mechanic. It's never been done before in Smash Brothers, and so it'll be interesting to see how this stage works out, what kind of strategies you can use for swapping back and forth between the foreground and the background parts of the stage. And then the next one is Mario Circuit for Mario Kart 8. This may have been showcased, I may have just missed it, but it's the Figure 8 course, or the Mario Circuit, from Mario Kart 8, and it appears that you're flying around it on a platform similar to stages like Skyloft and such. And so we'll see whether you land on the track at any point, or whether you just kind of fly in that Mobius strip pattern. And then the next one that I'd like to talk about is Windy Hill Zone. I know this has been covered a bit before, but I just like to spend a little more time on this image of it. And so it looks really interesting. It's definitely, I would say it's an improvement on Green Hill Zone. I'm not sure if the windy part of it will come into any sort of play in the actual stage, but we'll find out. And then Woohoo Island, which is another stage that people were expecting, was showed in the previous post of the day earlier this week with the different pictures that show up alongside the rules. And so it looks like similarly to other stages, it'll drop you off at different parts of Woohoo Island, and you'll be able to battle on those, and each time the terrain will change, and so it'll be pretty standard for Smash Brothers at this point, but it'll be fun. And then a completely new stage that hasn't been seen before is Wrecking Crew, at least to my knowledge. And this was a Mario game way back when, and it really appears interesting. I'm not sure exactly what happens in that stage, but from the little bit of it that we did see, it does look like it's going to be a very kind of interactive stage. Like, the stage is definitely going to change a lot around you. And so, until more information is presented or release happens, then we're probably not going to know too much about this stage. Though Wrecking Crew does also show up in the Masterpieces as well, and so it'll be interesting to see how this plays in. And then Pyrosphere. Pyrosphere I wanted to talk about just because I know it's been showcased before, but because of Ridley's interaction with it. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of the biggest smack in the face for Ridley fans, just seeing him so close to being a character, but yet so far. And especially with Mewtwo coming in as a DLC character, this pretty much nullifies any chances that Ridley ever had of becoming a DLC character at this point. So unfortunately, he's been relegating to a giant stage boss, or a giant stage enemy, and so it's kind of unfortunate. And as I mentioned earlier, if you KO him, you get a point. If you attack him enough without KOing him, he joins kind of your side, similar to the Flying Men from the Magic Hand stage in the 3DS version, although you didn't have to attack them, you just had to go over and move your character over them. Ridley's changing into Meta Ridley depends on him being off the edge and collecting the energy that's pouring off on either side of the stage, and so I'm not sure whether he receives a power increase or a different moveset when he becomes Meta Ridley, but once again we'll find out. And then that's pretty much it for stages outside of the DLC stage Miiverse. We don't know when it's going to be coming exactly, and it's pretty simple, similar to Battlefield, and it's going to just be kind of a quirky, almost interacting with a community stage, in the fact that Nintendo is going to pick different people's drawings for characters and include them in the fights as those characters play on the Miiverse stage. And so that's kind of an interesting quirk. It's kind of a very fan service-esque sort of stage, but we'll see what exactly is going to happen. Oh, and another note for Pyrosphere, I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but Pyrosphere has more than just Ridley. It has FG2 Gram units from Metroid, as well as Julians and Zeros. And so these are all interactable and can do different things depending on what you do with them, and that you can use them for your own benefit, or you can just stay away from them and hope not to end up being KO'd by one of them. And so that's pretty much it for stages. And so I'll probably be able to put up the collage video just with a lot of the just imagery from the Direct later this weekend. And I'll continue to do videos similar to this, where I just go into depth on one part of the Direct and just describe different things. But there is actually one more stage that wasn't mentioned in the Direct, but was spotted. Actually, two more stages that were spotted in the Direct that weren't mentioned. The first one being either Pokemon Stadium 1 or 2. We're not sure exactly which, or possibly an entirely new Pokemon Stadium. And it was seen in one of the little event match icons. People really just go and search through all of these things. But anyhow, it's there. It's obvious that it's there, but it's not in the stage roster quite yet, so it's unlockable. And so we'll see whether it's a new Pokemon Stadium, whether it's one of the ones from the older games. Either way, we've got some Pokemon Stadium related stage. And then the next one was actually shown in the stage roster, but was the only one in the entire roster not listed in the direct. Every other stage on that roster that they showed was listed except for this one, and that is Congo Jungle from the Smash Bros. 64 game. Now, this is really interesting. It's kind of pulling a Dr. Mario, Mewtwo, etc. sort of move in the fact that it skipped over Brawl and came back from Melee, and because it did get remade in Melee from Smash 64. And so this is the first, I guess, Smash 64 stage to have made it to a newer generation console outside of the GameCube. And so it'll be interesting to see whether they change it at all, or whether it's going to function exactly the same as it did in Smash 64. I'm pretty excited. I've always enjoyed the Congo Jungle stage, and so this is kind of a treat for fans who missed the original Smash 64 stages. And so that is pretty much it at this point. As I said, I'm going to continue to put out videos similar to this, kind of dissecting the directs into different pieces, especially the more relevant pieces, as opposed to just, oh look, Coin Battle's back, oh look, Stamina Match is back. And so at that point, we'll see what happens. And so that's all for tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will be back tomorrow with more Nintendo news. So, until then, stay classy, YouTube.